In a stunning and ominous geopolitical shift, the government of Russia, China, and Iran today announced their intention to hold unprecedented bilateral talks focused on nuclear strategy and global security. The coordinated announcement, released simultaneously from Moscow, Beijing, and Tehran, sent shockwave through an international community already reeling from Russia's massive missile assault on Ukraine. The move is being universally interpreted as the formal consolidation of a new strategic bloc, an axis of authoritarian power openly challenging the United States and the Western-led international orders. The location chosen for this landmark summit, Tehran, further amplified the gravity of the declaration, symbolically elevating Iran from a regional proxy to a recognized strategic partner of two of the world's major nuclear powers. The joint statement was carefully worded in the detached language of diplomacy, yet its message was unmistakably confrontational. It spoke of a need for a more just and stable multipolar world order and the importance of coordinating approach in the face of escalating global threats and unilateral actions by certain states. The text called for a comprehensive dialogue on strategic stability, nuclear doctrine, and non-proliferation, but framed this discussion within the context of what it described as the destabilizing policies of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. By explicitly blaming the West for the current security crisis, the three nations laid the political groundwork for a unified front. The announcement declared that the initial summit, to be attended by their respective national security advisors and top military officials, would take place in Iran's capital within the next month, a timeline that underscored the urgency of their agenda. The reaction from the administration of President Donald Trump was swift and scathing. In a statement released by the White House, President Trump condemned the pact, labeling it a desperate alliance of tyrants. The president's message was characteristically direct, stating, "Weak regimes cling to each other for support. Russia, a nation failing in its military advance, now seek comfort from communist China and the mullah in Iran. This is not a sign of their strength, but a confession of their shared weakness and their shared fear of freedom and American power. The United States will not be intimidated. We will stand by our allies. We will defend our interests, and we will ensure that the future is written by patriots, not by the leaders of these failing states." The statement put the world on notice that the United States viewed this new grouping not as a legitimate diplomatic initiative, but as a hostile coalition. Secretary of State Marco Rubio provided a more detailed and somber diplomatic response at a packed State Department press conference. He formally designated the new grouping as an axis of revisionist powers committed to undermining international law and global stability. "Let us be clear about what this is," Secretary Rubio began, his tone grave. "This is a gathering of nations united by their opposition to freedom, democracy, and the principles of national sovereignty. Russia, which is actively trying to extinguish sovereign nations through brutal force, China, which represses its own people and threatens its neighbor, and Iran, the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism, are now banding together. They seek to rewrite the rules of the world to make it safe for their own authoritarian ambitions." Secretary Rubio announced he would be embarking on an emergency diplomatic tour to meet with key allies in Europe and the Indo-Pacific to formulate a unified strategy to counter this new axis. He stressed that this development went far beyond the conflict in Ukraine and represented a generational challenge to the free world. From a military perspective, the announcement was treated with the utmost seriousness. Secretary of Defense Peter Hegseth addressed the media from the Pentagon. Standing before a backdrop of the flag of the military service, he stated that the Department of Defense was reevaluating its global force posture in light of this new formalized strategic alignment. For years, our national defense strategy has identified Russia and China as our primary strategic competitors, Secretary Hegseth explained. The formal inclusion of Iran, a regime that has armed proxies to kill American soldiers, create a new and complex set of challenges across multiple theaters of operations simultaneously. We must now plan for the contingency of coordinated or opportunistic aggression from this axis in Europe, the Indo-Pacific, and the Middle East. He warned that any assumptions that these were disparate regional threats was now obsolete. The Pentagon, he assured the public and a global audience, was ready to defend American interests wherever they were threatened. The intelligence community echoed these concerns. A public assessment released by the Office of Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, highlighted the acute danger of nuclear proliferation. The report stated that while the trilateral talks were ostensibly about doctrines, the intelligence community's primary concern was the potential for advanced technology transfer. The inclusion of Iran in a high-level dialogue on nuclear matter with Russia and China is a cause for profound alarm. The assessment read, "This could provide Tehran with the political cover and potentially the technical assistance to advance its nuclear ambitions under the guise of a strategic partnership. A nuclear-armed Iran, shielded by Russia and China, would fundamentally and dangerously alter the security landscape of the Middle East and the world." The report concluded that monitoring the interactions between these three nations, particularly in the scientific and military technology sphere, was now the highest priority for the American intelligence community. Formation of this new bloc sent tremors through America's network of alliance. In Europe, Nato headquarters in Brussels called another emergency session. The announcement was seen as Russia's strategic masterstroke in response to Western pressure, successfully expanding the conflict from a European problem to a global one. A joint statement from the leader of France and Germany expressed grave concern and called for unshakable transatlantic unity. However, behind the scene, European officials were deeply worried. The prospect of a coordinated Russia-China front, now with Iran as a disruptive junior partner, presented a security nightmare that the continent was ill-equipped to handle on its own, increasing its reliance on American military power at a time of deep uncertainty. Nowhere was the alarm felt more acute than in the Middle East. For Israel, the announcement was a realization of its worst fear. An unnamed senior Israeli official was quoted in the Jerusalem press as saying, "This is not just an alliance, it is a protective shield for Iran's nuclear program and its terrorist network." Iran no longer stands alone. It now has two permanent members of UN Security Council as its declared strategic partner. The world has just become an infinitely more dangerous place. The development was seen as a direct existential threat, likely to accelerate Israel's own strategic planning and its covert operations aimed at thwarting Iran's nuclear ambitions. In Riyadh, the government of Saudi Arabia, which viewed Iran as its primary regional rival, met the news with public silence but intense private diplomatic activity, reaching out to Washington to seek new security guarantees. The pact between its main adversary and two global powers threatened to completely upend the balance of power in the Persian Gulf. In East Asia, the reaction was equally fraught with anxiety. The government of Japan and South Korea, both key U.S. allies and both living in the shadow of an increasingly assertive China, issued strong statements condemning the new trilateral security talk. The spokesperson for the South Korean Foreign Ministry stated that any strategic or military cooperation that emboldened North Korea and destabilized the Korean peninsula is unacceptable. In Tokyo, officials voiced deep concerns that the pact would encourage China to act more aggressively in the East and South China Sea, including in its territorial dispute with Japan and its posture toward Taiwan. The prospect of Russia and China coordinating their military activities in the Pacific, such as joint naval patrols and bomber flights, now seem more likely than ever. For Ukraine, the news was a devastating blow. The announcement confirmed that Russia was not isolated, as Western leaders had long claimed. Instead, it had succeeded in building a powerful coalition of states opposed to the current world order. A Ukrainian official, speaking on conditions of anonymity, described the mood in Kyiv as bleak. The official stated, "Our fight for survival has now become the front line of a global struggle. Russia's war machine will now be refueled and rearmed by the industrial might of China and the disruptive capabilities of Iran. We need more than just support. We need our partners in the West to recognize that this is a new world war, albeit a different kind, and to provide with the tools to win." Analysts around the world began to dissect the long-term implications of this new formation. They noted that while the three nations have different goals and are not a truly cohesive ideological bloc like NATO, they are united by a shared objective to diminish American power and influence. This marriage of convenience allowed them to pool their resources, coordinate their diplomatic messaging, and create multiple simultaneous crises for the United States and its ally to manage. The announcement effectively drew new battle lines for a 21st century global competition. It was a formal declaration that the post-Cold War era was over, replaced by a tense and unstable competition between two camps. The world had now been presented with a clear choice between two competing visions for the future, one led by the democratic West and the other by a newly emboldened axis of authoritarian state. The stage was now set for the United States to make its next move in this rapidly escalating global chess match. Many of my listeners, like 70%, haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, and so many of you don't even know that you haven't subscribed. And that is actually what makes the show going. It's almost like you're making a donation to the show. So that's why I ask again and again, because it enables us to grow and grow and grow. And we're going for the long haul here. And listen, if this is your first time listening to Sohain Rich, you don't have to subscribe. You guys, your first one's on me. But if you have watched this show before, it's like you are a freeloader now. So all I would ask you is, if you have seen this show before, you like it, help me, help my team here. Hit that subscribe and like button now, and we will continue to build this show for you. That I swear. Thank you to all of you guys who have subscribed. It means a lot to me. Thank you so much. That's all for me for today. I will see you soon. Bye for now.